South Center's podcast network. We're here at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Not only are we doing live internet radio through Blog Talk Radio, but we're also live on the Jackson Educational Access and Channel 17 University of Rio Grande TV channel. Our podcasts are archived and placed on YouTube for viewing and listening again. Our mission is simple: to promote the University of Rio Grande and its diverse educational programs. Also to promote the Ohio State University South Centers and its many business technology programs. But most importantly, promote Southern Ohio, a great place to live, learn, and enjoy life to the fullest. Co-hosts are Jason Winters, Director of the Center for Small Business Entrepreneurship, and Mike Thompson, Instructional Design and Media Services Director, who are both with the University of Rio Grande. We also have Patrick Dengel, Business Development Specialist, and Kimberly Rausch, Program Assistant, both with the Ohio State University Centers. Jason, how about introducing our guests, our featured guest today?
I'd be happy to, Pat. You know, today's a very special day. We have a very good friend of mine and colleague here at the University of Rio Grande. He works with me in the Evans School of Business, Alan Cook. Alan teaches IT classes for us and some other computer classes, and today we're going to talk about technology. And if our conversation is anything like our half hour before this show, it should be a really interesting show today. Alan, welcome.
Thanks, Jason.
Why don't you tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself? I know you've been on the show before, but refresh our memory.
Well, this is my third year teaching at the University of Rio Grande as an instructor of the College of Business and also in the IT department. And I've come to Rio Grande. I have a background in business and education. I taught in Chillicothe City Schools and then later worked at Horizon Chillicothe Telephone as a training specialist and product manager. And that's what brings me here.
Well, and let's clarify one thing. You know, we have a listening audience not only here on campus but also in Jackson County area and even into the Vinton County area. And so some of our people are listening. What is IT?
Well, IT is information technology, so it's the combination of how we share, how we communicate, how we distribute information using technology. And we have a course here at the university that students start out with, IT 10103, Introduction to Information Technology, and that's sort of what we decided to kind of talk about here in the course, to sort of kick around some of those different topics that we have. Talking about computers and the history of computers, where they came from, where the internet came from, and how it was developed and put together, and how that interfaces with our everyday lives.
Hey, Alan, I got to ask you, we know that we landed our men on the moon using slide rules. Did you use a slide rule when you were in school?
I did not. That was before my day. Sorry, Patrick. I'm sure that you were in the slide rule generation.
Yes, I was. They were neat. Does anyone other than myself own a slide rule?
I played with one at one time, and I figured out how to use it.
They could calculate up to close to 3 or 4 decimals. Mm-hmm. And it's also interesting, the first computers on the space shuttles had less computing power than
now easily than your phone.
Yeah, well, sure. Even some of the greeting cards that have little microchips in them, they're even more powerful than some of those computers that we use. Yeah.
So I've got to ask, what was your first computer that you played around with?
The first computer that I ever used, thinking back, was probably a Commodore PET. So back in the 70s, the first computer I owned was a ZX81. I don't know if I remember.
What's that do? I mean,
it was a very small computer. It had a membrane keyboard. Thing was probably about the size of a doorstop. Well, maybe a little bit bigger than a doorstop. Paperback book.
Is that after the TRS-80?
Came around about the same time as the TRS-80. TRS-80s were definitely a step above the ZX81. ZX81 had 1K of memory. So, and connected to your TV, and
All right.
It was
Sort of like the old Commodores.
Yeah.
Because it was
Those
just
64s,
basically
yeah.
a keyboard, and you would plug in hard drives and floppy drives and stuff onto the end. If you need a modem, you plug it into the end of that. So it just became a...
I don't even think there was a hard drive available for ZX81. You had to use a cassette. And I think we did go to Radio Shack and use one of the TRS-80 cassette tape machines for it. So, and of course you couldn't type a whole lot of information into 1K of memory, so just a couple pages of information. But to save it, you had to press record on the tape deck and then tell the computer to save the file, and then it would record the information onto a cassette tape, which sometimes would take up to 30 minutes or so to save your file.
Yeah.
And then you had to stop it, and then to reload it later, you turn the computer on, rewind the tape, press play, tell the computer to load it, and then 30 minutes later your file would load up.
Yeah, and my first exposure, I think, was a TRS-80 at Galley Academy in 1980-81. And, you know, they were doing some simple commands and stuff, and that's where I decided, I'm not a programmer.
Now I like programming.
That's too tedious, all those syntax errors and stuff.
Yeah,
so
but it was really neat to put your name on a screen and let it scroll around and bounce around and come back to the center.
I don't know if it was that sophisticated.
I did like the programming aspect. Matter of fact, that's probably what got me involved sort of in computers, is I had a teacher in middle school pretty much set a stack of computer manuals in front of me and said, learn how to use this thing.
Yeah.
So she had no idea what to do with it. They had given her a computer, and I sat down and started programming it.
Did you program in assembly language?
No, it was basic at the time. Yeah.
I'm a creative, so I stayed away from computers until I got my Macintosh.
Yeah.
You know, you asked me to type stuff in just to find a file.
Just to get it to operate.
No, I'm not doing it. So I skipped it.
And a lot of people stayed away from computers because of that reason, because it was cryptic. You had to know the language, you had to understand the commands and memorize the commands even to get it to operate.
Right.
So it was definitely
and I think some of those people at that time held on to that and kept it just for job security. It's like, I'm the only one that knows how to do this.
Yeah, like a society of an inside society of the people who knew how to use them.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
We're really only talking about a period of 25, 30 years that we have went from this to where we are today, where computers, they're an essential part of every business. They're just as much an essential part as a telephone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that at the time people were just catching on that they could use, I mean, when personal computers came out, they were definitely hobbyist machines and people did tinker around with them, but that as soon as applications started to become available, commercially available, and people realized for spreadsheets, VisiCalc, being able to punch in business calculations and manage your books through a computer, they became more desirable to make life simpler and businesses easier to run.
Well, you mentioned applications. Again, we've got a lot of individuals listening to the show today that may not know what an application is. They may not know what software is. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Our cameraman.
Yeah, he's confused.
Well, basically, computers can be divided into different categories, but we have hardware, which is all the physical parts of the computer, the things you can pick up and hold in your hands, the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, the motherboard, the different components, and then the software are the instructions that are written into the computer. The program is how, or programs are created by these instructions to do things, to manipulate data and information. So.
And are we still in the 4th generation languages, or has that moved? Have we moved beyond?
There are 5th generation languages, but mostly, we're sticking with 4th generation because the 5th generation are not so. They tried to create these more natural languages, but they really haven't caught on so much as the.
You want to explain a little bit about what
where is iOS? Is that programming, is that 4 or 5?
iOS would be 4th generation.
Okay.
Because it's using and that slips my mind right away, but C and
Pascal.
No, not Pascal. C.
That's probably generation 2. One.
I remember when.
Yeah. Anyway, the I know with Macintosh that the iOS and their regular operating system are starting to merge. You know, with the Launchpad, which looks a lot like your iPhone Launchpad for all your apps and stuff. So it's going to become seamless between your computer and your phone or your mobile device or whatever.
Yeah, well, I think Apple has realized that the simplicity of the phone operating system, they're incorporating elements from that into their desktop operating system, and trying to merge the two eventually. And we're seeing, you know, Microsoft actually do that in their next revision of Windows. Windows 8 is basically taking the idea of one operating system that will run across all their different platforms. Trying to merge the best of the phone and the desktop together into one cohesive operating system. I think that's got a lot of people worried.
Yeah, or nervous at least.
Yeah, a little nervous about the next...
Well, and then you wonder if the large programs, you know, like I do video editing and Photoshop and all that, is that going to be able to be supported by these trim operating systems?
Yeah, so I think Steve Jobs pretty much said that obviously, you know, when automobiles came out, everyone wanted a truck, a utility vehicle. And now we still have people who need trucks, but not everyone drives them. You know, most people just need a car.
Yeah.
And same thing with computers. Most people just want to use them to get the job done. They want to have something they can get into, use, not have it be too technical. They don't need the heavy lifting that you need to do all the different components. So some people will still need desktops that are designed around high-end, complicated.
Right. But for 90% of most what people do, I think a tablet like an iPad will do
suffice.
Most whatever you want.
Yeah.
Access,
web browsing, email.
writing stuff.
That's what most people do.
Yeah.
Social networking. It's very small.
It's all there except for your bigger programs.
Yeah.
Last week, I saw on TV a commercial in which a little boy had an opportunity to kick a football, and it went through a house and went through another
It went
room.
through all kinds of neighbors' houses
Yes.
and stuff.
And he got on his iPhone and sent $200 checks to the other individuals. Now, I know it's a little bit more complicated than that, but doesn't that concern you, that we can go into somebody else's bank account?
No, it wasn't somebody else's bank account. That
It's
was
his
the
account.
father paying for all the
Damage.
his son did. And he was sending
Electronically.
payments to his neighbors.
And where was that being kept?
And his bank account. I mean, he distributed it from his bank account to their bank accounts.
Sort of like you would do PayPal.
He
And
could have wrote checks to all of them.
Doesn't that concern you, that I could send
you can
check,
send me whatever money you want. That's fine.
but I would have to
Are you
have
promoting that right now?
I would have to have your bank account number.
No.
You would have to have my email address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's connected. And the account number is hidden.
Yeah.
So you know that's the way
Your
PayPal
your bank would have his account number of where to wire that money to, but you'll never see it.
And you don't need to see it. Yeah. So when he registers let's say you register a PayPal account.
Okay.
So you create a PayPal account, you tie it to your banking institution, and then you send me money through PayPal. All you need is my email address. So you send that money to me, PayPal transfers it into my
They
bank
make
account.
that connection.
Yeah.
I would like to think that, you know, I keep tabs on the accounting, but today I pulled this off the New Technology News. 1.5 million card numbers are at risk from a recent hack. And then another article, ACLU, most police track phone locations without warrants. And Are we
Well, those are issues
in danger?
Those issues are always going to be out there, and I think that, and those are the kinds of things we discuss in class: ethics issues, privacy issues, because those are the types of things that technology does. It potentially exposes us to those hazards or dangers. But those hazards and dangers have always been there. If you put your money into a bank and the bank was robbed,
or you put it under your mattress.
Yeah, and your house burned
it's
down.
In a mayonnaise jar on the back.
And what's your address again?
And what do you, okay, going on the same thing, what do you think about the idea of getting rid of cash? It's going to be a cashless society. Another 10 years, you're not going to have a dollar bill in your pocket.
They said that 20 years ago.
Oh, have you seen these new? You can take your iPhone or your smartphone and plug an adapter into it and swipe a credit card and
yeah, we had that on the show.
Yeah. So that's I mean, it's
and in New York, all you have to do is tap your credit card against a post.
Yeah, and it makes a payment.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're moving more and more towards making payments with your phone. So your phone is tied to your bank accounts, tied to your credit card. You will use your phone as your wallet. So instead of carrying cash with you, you how many people today leave the house without their phone?
I hope the cashless society doesn't happen in my lifetime.
I agree with you.
I agree with you, Pat, that it probably will. For those who are biblical scholars, they can go back, and it forecasts that time. You will not be able to buy or sell without a mark. Now, what that mark is something else.
Well,
that's a chip in your forehead.
But it may very well be a credit card as well.
Yeah.
That is tracked.
But as long as you have people who want to, there will always be cash because people will want to make transactions that are
we'll usually probably have
transactions.
There will have.
Well, we could actually go back to a bartering society as well.
Well, either that or we would be, those that are carrying cash would be looked upon as
the lepers.
The lepers of society. Yes.
Visa's already kind of done
pale,
that with their commercials. They've already tried to paint everyone who uses cash as holding up the system and slowing things down.
But you know what? One of the things that I read recently, banks are now starting to move toward having people, because there are individuals that do love to talk with their bankers, and that
you don't want to do all your stuff online. There's sometimes I want to talk to someone to handle my problems.
I agree.
Just like we have kept our people that answer the phones.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing, is to have people that you actually call and they can connect you and not go through some menu system. It's so impersonal that people get tired of it.
I have always said that, as we move to technology, of course technology makes things easier and faster and quicker and more convenient, but at the same time it's going to make those types of experiences more authentic. You can send emails to people, but the person who sits down and handwrites a letter to you, that's going to be more meaningful. The person who calls you on the phone rather than sending you a tweet.
I have to disagree, because if you receive a handwritten letter from me, you will not be able to read it, and it will not be very personal.
Well, you're making a really good point. Yesterday, I received a letter, and it looked like an invitation. It was hand printed from Chicago, and it was an advertisement.
Oh, okay. So they'd done such a good job with the technology that it appeared to be handwritten, but it actually wasn't.
Yes.
But you're impressed by it because it appeared to be handwritten.
Oh, one of our family members just left for basic training, and they are learning how to write a letter because you don't have your technology with you. So all you have is a pen and paper.
But that is technology. It's just very basic technology. Yeah.
But he's going to have to go to the post office and send his wife a letter.
Well, what was that recent commercial where there are two young ladies that are interviewing for a job, and the person asks, "Can you type?" and they pull out their little text phones and say, "Why, sure."
Yeah. Now, and something I try and let students, because they've grown up with this stuff, let them kind of grasp is, You know, the first computer I had was a Mac SE. And, you know, I did some cool stuff with it. You know, I wrote things. There was no internet. I did an email from it. I did desktop publishing. I made posters and all kinds of graphical stuff. You know, there was no video editing. I was still doing video editing on like 3/4 inch tape. But now on my hip, I have a phone that has a camera. I can edit and record video. I can upload stuff and do email, and I can edit pictures if I want. You know.
Yeah, the new iPad that I just purchased, and I bought the 2, not the 3 that's just come out, but it's got Photoshop right there. You take a picture, edit the photos. My kids were playing on it when I was coming back from the store, and they were, I mean, it was really cool. They had all these distorted pictures and pretty high-tech stuff that 20 years ago was unheard of.
Yeah, we paid what, $2,500, $3,000 for the Mac SE at the time, and you know, for what we got,
hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
Well, right now you can get it for 99 cents if you get a 2-year contract. So.
Yeah. But we're giving this stuff away almost, and it's more power than I had on my desk, you know, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think what will happen from here on out.
Yeah.
You know, there is going to be probably wallpaper.
Video
Instead of carrying around a piece of paper, it will be a live document that will interact with you. You know, it won't be, you know, several $100s. We'll be able to create these chips and displays, and you might toss it away. Surfaces will become active.
Yeah.
Glasses will become active things where it will help me out, supposedly. Maybe it would be facial recognition, and it'll tell me what your name is.
Yeah.
And maybe your contact information and what context I know you in, so that I can keep up a conversation and not look like an idiot.
We laugh at some of the things. I mean, talk about those technologies. You think about the teenagers today and the things that they do, but can you imagine that the shirts and apparel that they will wear will have video on it? Will be a video display. Can you imagine what the teenagers are going to display on their shirts as they walk around?
My
now, if you think
goodness.
where we've come from, you know, like the time that I would have went to college, I went to the Army, we had no cell phones. You had to call by standing up in the hallway in the payphone. There was no email, or you had to write letters. Okay, and then in that past 30 years, we've gotten to this point. Now 30 years plus.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at this like, can you imagine carrying that stuff around and dropping it in the toilet? Good God.
You had to charge your cell phone every night.
Well, and the changes that it's made in education. You know, when we went to college, you know, the lecturer, which was usually PhD, would stand in front of you and they would lecture, and they had the little overhead and they would scribble notes and it would be projected up on the screen. And you were trying to decipher their handwriting, as well as read whatever was on that little screen that it was projected on. Now we have wonderful LCD digital displays with PowerPoint presentations where a lecturer can click a button and it's all there. You can actually send PowerPoints. In some respects, students are a little bit spoiled today by the information that they're receiving and not having to take all those physical notes. A lot of times they're sitting in class with their laptops
and their phones.
Their phones. They can easily record and take notes. We also have online courses. Changed the face of education, really.
And we're going to have to adapt. And I've been trying to preach this around and to set the seeds and set things in motion so people can adapt to this. Because, you know, like with Blackboard online classes, we've got ways to make it so that they can't go off that page when they're taking a test. But they have an iPad or an iPhone or something to do it on the side, so that becomes useless. So we have to make tests that are answered in such a way that you can't just Google it.
Well, Mike, and that's where a lot of people differ in what assessment's all about.
Right.
Personally, I'm not a fan of testing, never have been a fan of testing.
I'm a project-based person
I
myself.
totally agree. You know, here's the material. Here's what you need to know out of this material. Now I'm going to give you a project where you're going to demonstrate that you understand this material. You know, we do a lot of business plans. You know, what a better way to to determine that you know marketing, that you know management, you know finances, than to put together a business plan. That's easy for the School of Business. You know, I think.
And not define a business plan.
Yeah, sure, because anyone can, you know, Google what's the definition of a business plan. Oh, that doesn't really help.
Yeah, assume that they're going to use their resources.
Yeah, find an application process to where you can prove functional knowledge.
Right. And forgot what I was going to go to with that, but things are.
Education definitely is.
Now,
changing.
see, if you had technology in front of you, you'd remember that.
Yeah,
but does that make us lazier as well? I mean, if we have to, then again, it goes back to what happens when you don't have access, and when you lose access, then you lose that information.
Well, I think that gets back to the individual.
Yeah, what happens when our electric goes out here?
Yeah.
It used to be, it's like, so what? It's dark. We'll still write on the board.
Yeah.
And now secretaries and you can't do anything.
Everything shuts down.
Right. So we might as well just leave work because the electric's out.
Well, it gets back to the individual. What are you using technology for? Are you writing technology, which means you're using it day to day and relying upon it to do everything, or are you using it to learn something? You know, it pushes so much at you. You can learn so much from technology to where if you don't have it, you can still get by. There are a lot of people that still do books by hand. They understand.
Oh, that's the thing I was going. Books.
Yeah.
Accounting.
E-books will be very rich. They'll have lectures and pictures and animation and audio and all this within the book. The only problem is right now is a book may be 10 gigs and your cheapest iPad's like 16. So, but you get one large enough, then that's the only thing you got to carry around is this one tablet.
That's one reason why I did buy the iPad. A lot of my textbooks, instructor manuals, they're all available online.
And can you buy those per chapter, or do you have to buy the whole thing?
No, you buy the whole book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about chapter. If you're only going to cover 1 through 3.
Although the publisher will put together a custom book.
Sure. Yeah, they can. But within those textbooks are live links. So when you're reading about a certain subject matter, you can click a link and it'll take you immediately to the web and out to whatever the relevant subject matter is.
My wife teaches a second grade school system, and next year they are going to a mobile e-pad computer lab. And some of the textbooks that they have been talking with the textbook sales reps, etc., and a lot of it is online. So
I can imagine the computer labs that we have now are going to probably go away because everybody's going to be carrying around better technology that they're used to rather than coming here and using our stuff.
Eventually, yeah.
Well, again, it depends on what you're using it for. Some of those applications, your
video
tablet,
editing and stuff,
is just not going to be strong enough to run those applications.
And plus, you may not have the money to buy the license for it.
Right.
Only thing that I can say is I can't wait for the 15 to the 25-year-olds to get later in age and say, I remember when.
Yeah. Okay, we've got about 1 minute and 15 seconds.
The show's all yours,
Alan. We have zipped right through this thing. Final words.
I'm still waiting for the phone calls from the IT guys. They were supposed to call in and give some great questions.
Okay.
Oh.
Nothing for them?
Haven't seen anything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They must be fixing problems on campus right now. They got sidetracked.
Well, get us on a topic of technology and we can ramble on all day.
Either that or you have enlightened them so much that they're in their offices thinking to themselves, I got to rethink the whole situation.
Left no stone unturned.
They just totally blown them away and they have no questions.
Yeah. Okay, go about 30 seconds. Who we got next week? Do you know?
Well, first of all, Alan, it is great having you on the show. Next week, we're going to be bringing back Christy Welsh.
Okay.
She's going to be talking about the aquaculture program that has been revitalized and is going statewide, etc. Sort of a fishy tale to me, but...
And aquaculture is?
Working with fish. Then we're going to have Jerry Driggs. Again, Alan, thank you very much. I'm Patrick.
I'm Jason.
I'm Mike.
This is Alan.
Thank you for listening.
And have a wonderful day.